Hello there. Welcome back. I'm Michael Fudge. This is lesson 8 in our series of learning to program in the Java programming language. Today we're going to be looking at the conditional statement if else. Lesson 8 agenda consists of the following topics. We'll take a look at branching and programming your logic with the if else statement. Along the way, we'll need some logical operators, so we'll discuss and, or, and not, and how you can do those in Java. Since our programs are getting a little more complicated, we'll have to spend some time talking about pseudocode, that is, how you can plan out your program logic, what you should probably think about doing before you write your code. And then, of course, there'll be a small tangent lesson on learning to solve larger problems with smaller ones. In our Dungeon Hack example, we use existing classes I've already made to solve a problem. Let's begin by overviewing the if-else statement. The if-else statement allows you to branch your code based on a Boolean expression. The first thing that happens is a Boolean expression is tested for a true-false condition. Boolean means true-false. If the expression is true, a series of statements are executed. Those statements are usually underneath the if statement. If the Boolean expression is false, the statements under if are skipped, and the statements in the else block are in turn executed. So in this particular statement, we're going to do one of two things based on true or false, but never both. There's three logical operators that we need to take a look at for you to better understand how to build Boolean expressions, because sometimes your Boolean expressions need to be more complicated than a simple Boolean variable. The first operator, two ampersands, is the AND operator, logical AND. Logical AND is true when both operands are true, otherwise it's false. Classic example of where we use logical AND is when you want to make sure a value falls within a range. So I have x greater than or equal to 1 and x less than or equal to 5. The two vertical bars that you see underneath the two ampersands represent logical OR in Java. The logical OR test is false when both operands are false, otherwise it's true. So only one of the operands needs to be true for the whole condition to be true. So in this example, I'm testing two methods that return Boolean values, dead or quit. So if dead's true but quit's false, the whole thing's true. If dead's false and quit's true, the whole thing's true. Only one of them needs to be true. Both of them needs to be false for the condition to be false in OR. The last logical operator is represented by the exclamation point, and this is logical not. So this negates the true-false condition. So if the condition is true, it becomes false. If it's false, it becomes true. So if I say not happy, if today I'm happy, I say not happy, then it's false. Okay, it's demo time. We're going to do a simple example of using the if-else statement and some Boolean expressions along the way. Let's get started. For this example, you see I've already done some setup code. I created my new Java project in NetBeans, and I've incorporated this statement, which you know creates an input object of type scanner. Then I'm printing out enter grade between 0 and 100, and then I'm accepting input for that grade. If I run this program with F6, you'll see that it simply asks me to type in a number, and I can type in any number I want, and then the program's over. The first thing I want to do is use the if statement to do some bounds checking. Let's make sure that I can only type a number in between 0 and 100. So here's the logic that follows. If the grade's bigger than or equal to 0, logical AND, the grade is less than or equal to 100. Now you might be wondering, when do you use logical OR and when do you use logical AND? It can be tricky at times to figure this out, so let me help you. Logical AND is used when both this operand and this operand need to evaluate to true. This is usually the case when you're doing bounds checking, that is when you're making sure a number fits within an acceptable range. Think about this. If I type in a grade of 50, it's bigger than or equal to 0, and it's also less than or equal to 100. If I type in a value of 105, it is bigger than or equal to 0. That's true, but it's not less than or equal to 100. So this would be false because it's this and this. If I use logical OR, it's not going to capture exactly what I want. In the event that you did do this correctly, what I'm going to say is system out print. You can follow instructions. Otherwise, I'm going to print You cannot follow instructions. Let's give it a try. Enter a number between 0 and 100. Let's try 50. You can follow instructions. Let's run it again. Let's enter 100. You can follow instructions. Let's try it again. Let's enter 150. You cannot follow instructions. Let's run it one last time and try -50. You cannot follow instructions. All right, let's make our program more useful now. If you have a grade higher than 70, you've passed. So let's print out messages according to that. So if your grade is between 0 and 100, it's now a valid grade. So let's think about what we want to do now. How about this? If the grade is lower than a 70, system out print, you're not a very bright student. It's kind of mean. If your grade's bigger than a 70 or equal to a 70, we'll fall into the else block. In this case, let's print out, let's do this, system out printf, %d is a nice grade. That's a little more encouraging. If you fall down here, let's change this to a printf and be a little more verbose in our error message. The value %d is outside the range 0 to 100. There's my whole program. So this program that I wrote demonstrates a couple of things. The first thing that you'll notice is you can have an if within an if. That is not a big deal. This is pretty common to do. And when you think about it, an if is just a statement. And we saw in the PowerPoint in the beginning of the lesson that inside the if block and inside the else blocks are statements. So you can have an if statement in there. Let's see what the logic looks like here. Let's run it. Enter your grade. Let's enter a 90. 90 is a nice grade. Let's run it again. How about a 40? You're not a very bright student. Let's run it again. How about 101? The value 101 is outside the range 0 to 100. Okay, so you see kind of how it works. Let's give it a debug, and we'll also show you that you can add watches based on not only variables but expressions. Check out this trick. I'm going to highlight this expression here in my if statement. Then I'm going to right click and insert it as a watch, new watch. And it automatically fills in the expression, and I'm going to hit OK. And now I have a watch not on a variable but on an expression. This is actually quite useful and the more common way that we use watches. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to debug the program and go through it a line at a time. So let's kind of get it moving first. All right, let's enter our value. How about 105? Now when we go back here to variables, you'll see the grade is here, 105, but we also have our expression under watch. So this Boolean expression evaluates to false. Do you see that? So what we're saying here is if false. Now because this is false, it's going to jump down to this else clause on line 20. Let's see what happens when I hit F8. See that? Jumped right down to else. And so on. I print out the rest of the program. Now let me run it again and have it fall through the if statement. So I'm going to start it again. It's asking me for input. This time I'm going to enter a grade of 75. This time the grade is 75 and the watch expression, grade bigger than or equal to 0 and grade less than or equal to 100, is true. So now the if is going to fall through into this code here from line 15 to line 19. Let's watch it happen. F8. There it goes. Now it's going to say, is grade less than 70? And as I hover over grade, you see it's 75. So this is going to be false. It's going to jump down to line 18. And then from here, it's going to exit out of this if block, and it's going to skip the else block and just end up right here. There we go. And then my output is 75 is a nice grade. Well, I hope you found that example useful, especially when we went through and stepped through the code a line at a time. I hope you found that it was very easy to understand how the if-else statement operates in Java. Now let's try and solve a bigger problem. I've written a couple of classes here to handle a game called Dungeon Hack, where you have an adventurer and he goes around with a weapon and slays monsters. And this has its roots in the dice game Dungeons and Dragons. What I've tried to do is I've tried to figure out how I could write code to simulate attacking a monster. And so I've written this down here. So my logic is I'm going to roll a 20-sided die. Then if that roll is bigger than the armor class of the monster, which is just a value that says how much protection the monster has, if I roll better than that, then I need to inflict damage on the monster, then check if the monster is dead. Otherwise, if I didn't roll high enough, I have missed the monster. That means I took a swing at him with my weapon and I didn't hit the monster. What I'd like to do now is write this code in Java and see if I can get this working. Let's try it out. Okay, for this next example, I've kind of staged things up in cooking show fashion. I've written a lot of code already. You can definitely get this code off of GitHub if you want, so that you don't have to try to keep up with the video. What I did is I have this Dungeon Hack package, and inside here I've got three classes: actor, die, and weapon. And a die is not death. It's you roll a die. Remember, we wrote this class before. So a die has get value, get sides, and roll. And then I have an actor class, and this actor class has an armor class. Health is dead, which tells me whether or not the poor person is dead, the monster or the character is dead. I have name, which is the name of the character. I have a method that says take damage, which you give it a number, and that's how much damage the character or monster takes. And then I have another method that gets the current weapon. Then lastly, I have a weapon class, and the weapon class has an action like it slashes or it pierces or it smashes. It has a hit damage. How much damage does it do? And a max damage, the maximum amount of damage it can do. And then the name of the weapon: short sword, long sword, mace. Then what I did was I went into my main routine and I put in my pseudocode here that I wrote in the PowerPoint slide. This will help me get an idea of how I need to solve the problem using the pieces and parts that I have, the actors and weapons and stuff like that. Let's start with some constructors. So if I said weapon sword is new weapon, and then I hit Control Space, you'll see that I need to give it a name, an action, and the maximum amount of damage. So I'm going to give the name of this thing, I'm going to call it a broadsword, and the action is slashes, and the maximum amount of damage, let's say, is 10 points. Let's make another weapon. I'm going to call it claw. That's going to be a new weapon. I'm going to say the arm, claws, and let's make that 6 as the maximum damage. Now let's make a player and a monster. That uses the actor class. Actor, player is a new actor. And when you create an actor, you need to give it a name, the name of the person, the total number of health, the initial armor class, and then the weapon that the actor is going to use. So let's start this out. Conan the Barbarian is the name. Let's give him an initial health of 5 and an armor class of 10. And Conan the Barbarian is going to use the sword. Let me also make another actor called Monster. And this is going to be a new actor. This is going to be the Grumpy Troll. Let's give the Grumpy Troll an initial health of 5, an armor class of 8. And the Troll's weapon is going to be his arm, his claw. Now we need a dice roller, so let's make that. Die D20 is new die. So we haven't written a single if statement, but what we've done is a heck of a lot of setup. This is typically how it goes in object-oriented programming, is you write a lot of code that uses a lot of the other classes that you made. So now let's see if we can figure out this code. So it says step 1 is to roll the 20-sided die. So let's do that. Int roll is d20.roll. That rolls a die. Okay, who's doing the attacking here? Let's have the player attack. What would it look like when the player attacks? Well, I'm just going to think this out for a second. What I want to say is something like this. This is not Java, by the way. This is just me thinking. I want to say Conan the Barbarian slashes his broadsword at the Grumpy Troll, and something's going to happen. We haven't decided yet. How do I say this in Java using the objects that I have to get a little creative here. So that's for the name. That's for the action of the weapon. That's the name of the weapon. That's the name of the monster. And so I want to say player.name, player.weapon.name. This is the action, right? Action. I'm going to move down the line so you can see this. The third, so Conan the Barbarian, player name, slashes his, now the weapon name. So player.weapon.name at the monster.name. So that seems like a lot, but let's see if it makes any sense. When I run this, I see Conan the Barbarian slashes his broadsword at the grumpy old troll and. So I don't know if I hit or missed the troll yet. I have to check that. So all I've done so far is line 10. Now I have to do line 11. If roll is bigger than armor class. If the dice roll is bigger than or equal to the monsters, because I'm trying to hit the monster, right? Monster.armor class. If I'm here, then I hit. Otherwise, I miss. So the first thing I do when I hit is I have to figure out how much damage I did. So let's do that. Int damage is, now what's making the damage? The weapon, right? So it's player.weapon.hitDamage. So where am I? I figured out how much damage I'm going to do. Now I need to inflict the damage on the monster. So monster.takeDamage. Damage. So now that monster has taken that damage. And now I should probably print something about it. So how's this sound? System.out.print hits for %d damage. Now there's more I have to do here. I'm just going to put to do here because I want to think about this side. When you miss, what should we do? You could probably just say system out. Whoops, this should be printf, by the way. Misses. And then after the if, we should probably just say system.out.println. Now how about we just throw a couple exclamation marks in there for good measure. Let's take a moment and just kind of run what we have here. It doesn't really fit on the screen. I'm trying to... There we go. Looks better. Let's run what we have here and see what we get. So it says Conan the Barbarian slashes his broadsword at the grumpy troll and hits for 2 damage. So line 26 prints out this, and then lines 32 prints out this. And line 38 prints out this. Let's run it again and see if I can miss. Oh, I hit that time. Okay, this time I missed. This is line 26. And then because the roll was less than armor class in line 28, I jumped down to else and did this. And then line 38 printed the exclamation marks out. Okay, so far so good. The only thing we have to deal with in my pseudocode is what if you kill the monster when you hit the monster? Let's try to figure that out. So you just did some damage. So how about this? If monster.isDead, let's say killing it. There we go. Let's see if we can run it and find a condition where we kill the monster. I just hit the monster for 2 damage there. I missed. 2 damage. Oh, there we go. Conan the Barbarian slashes his broadsword at the grumpy troll. That's 26, line 26, and hits for 5 damage. That's line 32. And then if monster is dead, comma, killing it, that's lines 34. And then the exclamation mark is at the bottom, line 41. So that's how you do that. And the only way you can really make that happen is by using branching with the if statement. I encourage you to go through and look at this exercise in more detail and use your debugger and stepping through the code line by line to kind of make more sense of how the if and else statements work. It's the best way to figure it out on your own is to just kind of go through a bunch of examples and kind of try them out. I also encourage you to go through and tweak this code to do different things so to get a better feel for how the actor, die, and weapon classes all kind of interact with each other to form this game. This concludes Lesson 8, where we talked about the if-else statement. Once again, I thank you very much for watching. Tune in for Lesson 9, where we look at the switch statement and also how to nest the if-else statement. And I'll conclude by saying thank you so much for watching, and if you have any comments, questions, or feedback, feel free to post them on YouTube. Have a good day.